me tell you about the moment I found out this film was being made. I came across a headline: Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, Harvey Keitel. One film. I read it twice, because that cast does not happen. That is not a cast that exists in real life. That is the kind of cast you imagine when you are 12 years old and someone asks you to build your dream gangster film. I was excited in a way that is very hard to explain to someone who hasn't spent years with these stars. But if you have watched Pacino, De Niro, Joe, if you have watched Heat and Goodfellas, if you know what Pacino and De Niro did in the same room for just a few minutes in that film, then you understand exactly what I felt when I read that headline. And then came the wait. Because The Irishman did not arrive quickly. The production was long. The de-aging technology they were developing was new and complicated. Months passed, then more months. Every few weeks there would be a new update, a trailer, a set photo, or release date pushed back, and each time I would feel that same combination of excitement and patience. When it finally released in November 2019, I didn't wait it any further and watched it as soon as I can. 3 hours and 30 minutes. I did not move from my seat. I loved it. I instantly wanted to watch it for the first time again. But when it ended, I sat with it for a long time. The Irishman is based on the book I Heard You Paint Houses by Charles Brandt. It tells the story of Frank Sheeran, a World War II veteran, a truck driver, and eventually a hitman for the mob who claimed in his old age to be the man who killed Jimmy Hoffa. Quick warning, there are spoilers ahead, and honestly, if you haven't seen this film yet, stop this video right now and go watch it. Then come back. It's worth it. Scorsese structures the entire film as a confession. Frank is old. He is sitting in a wheelchair in a nursing home, narrating his life to us, and everything we watch, the decades of crime, the friendships, the killings, is filtered through the memory of a man who knows he is running out of time. This is not an accident. The structure is the argument. Scorsese is saying from the very first frame, you are not watching a story about power. You are watching a story about what power costs, about what is left when it is all gone. Robert De Niro plays Frank Sheeran, and I want to say clearly, this is the best De Niro has been in decades. What he does here is not what you expect from a gangster film performance. There is no explosion, no famous line, no single scene you can pull out and show someone as proof. What De Niro gives you is accumulation. A lifetime of small choices, each one quiet, each one dangerous, building into a portrait of a man who has spent so long doing what he was told that he has genuinely forgotten how to want anything for himself. The stillness De Niro carries through this film is more disturbing than anything loud he could have done. Al Pacino as Jimmy Hoffa is the complete opposite, and that is exactly why it works. Hoffa is energy. Hoffa is a man who built himself into the most powerful union leader in American history through personality alone, and Pacino brings every volt of that. He is funny, he is paranoid, he is magnetic, he is impossible to control. Every scene he shares with De Niro has this extraordinary tension, all that stillness meeting all that electricity. Joe Pesci came out of retirement for this film. Scorsese called him personally, and what Pesci does with Russell Bufalino is something I did not expect, because Bufalino is nothing like Tommy DeVito. No explosions, no famous moments, just a very old, very soft-spoken, very powerful man who has never needed to raise his voice in his life because everyone around him already knows what he's capable of. Pesci plays him with a patience that is genuinely chilling. Every scene he is in, something shifts. And then there's Harvey Keitel, a face that carries its own history in Scorsese's world, going all the way back to Mean Streets. His role here is smaller, but his presence matters. He is another reminder that this film is in conversation with everything Scorsese has made before, that it is, in some ways, a farewell to a world he has spent 50 years building on screen. There are people who compare The Irishman to Goodfellas constantly, and I understand why. Same director, same world, same genre on the surface. But Goodfellas is about the seduction of a life. Scorsese films that world with such energy, such style, such movement, that you feel what Henry Hill feels. You feel the pull, the money, the power, the belonging. Goodfellas makes you understand why someone would choose this. The Irishman is about what that choice actually costs. Everything that Goodfellas makes exciting, The Irishman makes heavy. The same dinners, the same handshakes, the same loyalty and the same violence, but filmed without music that makes your heart race, without editing that makes the world feel electric. Just time, just accumulation, just the slow weight of decades of decisions you cannot take back. These two films are not competing with each other, they are a conversation, and you need both halves to understand what Scorsese is really saying. Now, some people watched this film and called it slow, boring, too long. And I want to be honest, I understand it. 3.5 hours is a real commitment, and if you sit down expecting Goodfellas, expecting that energy, that propulsion, that feeling that the film is moving faster than you can keep up, then The Irishman will feel like a different language. But here is what I think. The people who found it boring are, in many cases, people who have not spent time with De Niro's work, with Pacino's work, with what Pesci is capable of when he is not being asked to explode, with what Scorsese does when he chooses restraint over style. Because if you know these filmmakers and these actors, if you know what each one of them is capable of and what they are choosing not to do in this film, then every quiet scene reads differently. You understand that the director who made the most kinetic gangster film ever made is deliberately slowing down. And you ask yourself, why? And the answer to that question is the film. The slowness is not a flaw. It is Frank Sheeran's life. Repetitive, heavy, the same choices made again and again across 30 years until one day you are old and alone and you cannot remember which parts were worth it because none of them were. I will not describe the final scenes in detail, but I will tell you about one image that has stayed with me. Near the very end, Frank is old, in a care facility. A priest has come to see him, and as the priest leaves, Frank asks him to leave the door open, just slightly, just ajar. That is the last image. A man, a corridor, a door left open because the alternative is complete silence. Scorsese has spent his entire career asking whether men like this can be redeemed. The Irishman is his most honest answer. Not easily, not automatically, and for some men, perhaps not at all, because redemption requires understanding what you did wrong. And Frank Sheeran, to the very end, is still not quite sure. That door is one of the most quietly devastating images I have seen in cinema. The Irishman is Scorsese at a point in his life and career where he is no longer interested in making the life look exciting. He is interested in the truth of it, the cost of it, the loneliness at the end of it. Watch it with patience. Watch it knowing what these men have given to cinema over 50 years. Watch it understanding that when artists of this age and this stature make a film together, they are not just telling a story, they are leaving something behind. The Irishman is what they left behind. I am the Wandering Cinephile, and I will see you in the next film.